All right. Good morning, my good friend.
Sounds like, listen, man, if you're already struggling to find the words for me in this podcast, you might want to start over again.
Let's just roll with it, man.
Good morning, my fellow,
my good fellow
man,
fellow American. Let's. hold on. I'm gonna look up something to say on YouTube.
Welcome, my fellow Americans. It's March 16th, 2023. Welcome aboard, everybody. Listen to the Crushing Iron podcast. This is episode 668.
It is. And yes,
first day of March Madness. Before we get into more popular topics that are, I guess, on brand, as Triathlon would say, did you fill out a bracket?
Not yet. Oh shit! It's probably too late, huh?
Nah. You can always get in. You can always get in late.
What time do they start? They're starting soon. I bet
they'll start for another hour and 20. So you're good. You got
really?
time.
Okay.
We'll just make it a power cast. You can get off and take care of that. It's priorities, man. Priorities.
Well, one bracket. I'll just do it while you're one of your talking segments.
It's so funny you said that. I almost said, well, all you got to do is bring up swimming, and then you can just log off for about 30, fill out a couple brackets, and come back, and I'll be like, yeah, man, that's kind of what I think. So, but yeah, so if you're filling out a bracket, I have a strict rule. I do one. I do one bracket. I'm not one of those people that does like 20. I do one bracket.
Yeah, one bracket.
Go all in on one. Be confident and roll with it. It makes it more fun. Who are you going to pick to win it all in your bracket?
Me. It'll definitely come down to matchups, but I think if you're going to put a gun to my head, I think I'm going to pick Houston.
I knew you were going to say that.
I mean, what do you mean? Why'd you know that?
I just had a feeling. I know you. I know how you pick. My feeling was you were either going to pick Houston or you were going to pick Texas.
No, I don't see Texas doing it.
No?
I don't know. I think they got hot. I think they're not going to stay this hot. I think they've hit their pinnacle. I mean, they beat Kansas twice in a row. I don't know. Good.
I got Kansas win it all. I'm being a homer.
Yeah, I can't see that one happening.
Yeah,
I actually think the surprise might be the team you're going to have to get by.
Oh yeah. We talked about it the other day. I had Duke in the Final Four.
Do you?
Yeah.
It's hard to pick against your own team. I got a buddy who picks up two brackets, and in the first one, he picks his team to get knocked out in the first round, Illinois.
Oof.
And then the next one, they win it all.
He's got the objective bracket and the homer bracket. Yeah, dude, I try to be as objective as possible. I got Tennessee, my team getting through Louisiana, and then I got us losing to Duke. I'll be elated because I can't stand Duke. Elated to beat Duke, but I'm just trying to be realistic, and I'm trying to put forth the best bracket possible. And we will put forth our best podcast possible today. If it's your first time tuning in, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe. And just podcasts in general, tons of valuables. We appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings on this planet, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes looking at the very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to the world championships, and everyone in between from all over the globe. And we use the feedback loop we have with them and Training Peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer multiple questions. We'll let you right in. Great people, fantastic resource, awesome community, and a sport that is overwhelming at times, overcomplicated often, and can just seem like there's way too much information out there. It is a great group, a safe group, and a lively group at times, and it's a good opportunity to ask questions, get great feedback from, again, a wide range of athletes with different experience levels and goals, but they've all been around the block, made the mistakes, found a lot of success. So it's an awesome place to gather resources and get really good objective but applicable answers to some of your best questions. So go in there, don't be a lurker, be a participant, and be a part of that awesome community. But that's it. We don't do sponsors. We definitely don't do ads, but we do have one agenda, and then it's an important one, and it's to do our best to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
That's what we're doing. But you know what, man?
I don't.
Sometimes happy and healthy is tough to get to. And, I was telling you yesterday, but I was in Training Peaks for quite a while yesterday, and I was going through it, and it always happens, and it kind of brought me back to, as it always does, I try to go back to where I started and imagine, when you and I first met, and I started working on training for my first Ironman, and I had no idea what I was getting into. I remember seeing it, watched Louisville, and then I was like, man, I want to do that. And then I signed up for it, and I was super excited. And then when training started, I was like, holy shit, I don't know if this is really my jam anymore. And it just got really hard. It's not easy sometimes. And I was thinking about that. And, we do want to keep everybody happy and healthy. And I think sometimes how do you frame that might be the best thing to talk about too, is how, that happy and healthy, that rewarding can be happy and stuff like that, because this shit is not easy sometimes. And there's some people getting closer to races, and I'm looking at their weeks going, thank God that ain't me. Because it's a lot of work. And, I just think that we have to almost, it's sort of like when I was in the news business, I used to interview people, and I was actually a human resources major in college. And we talked about this thing called realistic job preview. And that was basically, when people come in, you don't try to, if a good, potential employee comes in, you don't try and, seduce them into the job. You tell them exactly what's like the worst parts of it, and I think a lot of times when people do sign up, they see a race or they see a friend do something, and they decide they want to do triathlon, and they don't know, sort of the ugly side of it or the tough side. And a lot of times I think that happens with job. Wait, I do what? You just hired me to do what? It's like we get there on the second day and you're cleaning out the bathrooms. Yeah, that's part of your job as the marketing director. You got to clean it, So I just think it's something to kind of touch on once in a while and remind people that this is a hard game sometimes,
Listen, everything we do in life feels harder some days than others. And I think that's, we talked before we went live today, because there's a race season is coming. You got athletes in the thick of it. We got quite a few athletes doing Ironman Texas, Ironman Tulsa. We got an athlete racing 70.3 this weekend. You got Texas. So, it's race season's here. So we've had athletes, and you have too. And in the peak, and I'm doing the same thing you're doing. I'm looking through, I'm like creating, some training blocks for Texas, and the last, I'm like, good God, like, I'm glad same thing. I'm like, I'm glad I ain't the one doing that. It's like, thank God. And that's good. And most of them, most of them have like a really good attitude about it. But I think we get, and we touched on this a little bit earlier this week about, the level of complaining that people do when they continuously find themselves in the same predicament that they put themselves in. It's like bitching about the parking spot you continuously park in when you could choose 80 other ones. That's what we do. We complain, right? And we do. I think we 100% forget that what we've chosen to do in any endurance sport, right? Not just triathlon, but when we're all adults. We all have choices. We've made a choice. You are listening right now. You've made a choice. You've made a choice to do an Ironman. You've made a choice to try to do a faster 70.3. You've made a choice to, do something very scary and do your first triathlon, right? Your first sprint, your first Olympic, or you're moving up from one or the other, or you're coming back down from fulls to short distance, trying to go faster. It's all hard. You hopefully didn't choose any of it because you thought it'd be easy, because if you did, you're wrong. It's really, really hard, right? It's hard to manage. And I think one of the things that we get confused with in how a lot of journeys with athletes can get misguided, and you can just kind of go down the wrong path at the very, very, very beginning. Because I do think whys, our why and our motivations, I think it all changes, throughout the course, especially if it's a long training block, right? Like you sign up for a race a year in advance. I do think it's totally normal for your motivation and commitment level to kind of ebb and flow, right? With life
Absolutely.
and with the stress and with the seasons, really. And then there's no reseason, then it's here. And so you get kind of excited again, and then sometimes life, rearranges your why. It could be just, your first reason for doing a race could be doing it faster, right? Or doing your first distance. And the next one, life happens, and like, hey, I just want to set a good example for my kids. Like, it's very, very important to understand what you signed up for and the requirement from you that it's going to take to reach the level that you've expected out of it. And I don't know what podcast it was, but we went on and talked a lot about that. I think people generally expect too much out of the Ironman or the 70.3 or the triathlon experience. They expect it to be life-changing, right? We expect a lot of things to do things for us that we, one of the quotes in the big book in A is like, is talks about, doing things, that we cannot do for ourselves. And that's what I think people gravitate to triathlon and endurance sports, and they expect the training and the races to, or not the training, but they expect the racing, the accolades, the medals, the certificates, the finisher gear, whatever it is, to reestablish who they are and why they do certain things. That's not the case. None of it is. It's about it's about the journey. It's about the training. It's about the days that you really don't want to do something, but you got to get it done. And I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that, and this is too hard. You fucking signed up for it. You signed up for it. You could have chosen to collect stamps.
Yeah.
You could have chosen to be a Weeblo scout or whatever it is. Like you could have picked something that was easier, right? But
that's not that easy, dude. I've been through that. Right?
I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's difficult in its own right. But you get what I'm saying here. It's freaking hard. Mm. You pick something difficult, right? And I've said this to some my athletes sometimes when they get into not a funk about swimming, what they complain about, then if you don't want to swim, just do duathlons. There's plenty of them out there. Just do them. Everybody gets in funks. Go do a duathlon. If you don't want to swim, don't be a triathlete. That's just a fact. Don't do it. Or find a way or sign up for something different. Or go run or do trail runs or do long runs. Find something, right? Don't just pick something off the wall. Don't spin the wheel and expect it to give back to you. Because what's going to happen is you get what you get out of it, or you get out of it what you put in. And a lot of athletes spin this wheel of randomness when they select races and expect it to change their life or bring fulfillment in, or get them. Races don't make you motivated. They don't. Coaches don't make you motivated. You motivate yourself in a variety of different ways. But people think that they can drop $850 and all of a sudden get motivated. You might get scared, but then that's going to go away, right? It's why you see a lot of people struggle, in the pros, they call it the sophomore slump. It's why a lot of athletes struggle their second year in long course racing. It's because they take it for granted. Mm-hmm. I've already did it. I know what to do. And they don't work as hard.
Yeah, I did.
And then you get bit in the ass. So when you pick a race and you expect it to change things, you better have thought through what you want out of it and why I'm doing it, right? And if it's totally misguided or it's totally misplaced, then rethink it. Scrap it. Who cares if your buddies are doing it? What's best for you and what do you want to get out of it? Do you want to challenge yourself? Do you want to grow? Do you want to do something that scares you, right? Do you want to push yourself farther and harder than you ever pushed yourself before? And if the answer is yes, then do you expect the training to be easy every day? No, it's going to be freaking hard. And sometimes you just got to realize it, move through it and do it, because the more I think you verbalize and talk through the negativity and the complaining and the giving yourself permission to take days off and to not do shit and to it's easy to do that. And we even do that sometimes too, in our Happy and Healthy podcast. It's, take a day off or you're not feeling it. But sometimes you better sack the fuck up and get out to work. and push through, because in race day, you don't got that option. So the more you practice quitting, and we have a podcast, I think, about that, what ours is called practice not quitting. It's just doing it whether and that one of the biggest issues too is that people won't participate unless they see imminent success, right? I don't want to do it unless I'm in a PR. I don't want to do it unless I know I can do it well. Take a risk, push through, figure it out, because anyone who's done a race, you get depressed afterwards, you get down on yourself. It's because you've had this big lofty goal, and the race itself was this meaningful thing, but you should have grown along the way. You should make choices along the way to take risks, to do things, and it's never going to be easy. At least a session or two a week you're not going to want to do. That's going to feel like crap, right? Do it. But I think the biggest thing too is just remember what you signed up for, and that you chose to do this, and that triathlon is not easy. But what's happened now is that, like, I think a lot of people see triathlon now as this like mount on the wall, especially Ironman racing. It's a bucket list thing, right? And you go, and I don't know shit about hunting, but I'm gonna talk about it for a minute anyway.
All right, I'm listening.
Yeah, as you go to your buddy's house and you see this, like, fucking grizzly bear on the wall, and you're like, man, what? That's unbelievable. You must be an incredible hunter. You must be savvy. You must be weathered and experienced. You must have put yourself at risk. Like, first of all, I don't condone that. I love me some bears, but I was like, you're like, man, that's incredible. And then you tell the story like, yeah, well, I paid this guide to take me out into the wilderness in Alaska. He drove me out there in a Humvee, and then we baited some stuff, and it came out and I shot it. You're like, what? No, that's not hunting, right? No, you didn't. That's like shooting a fish in a barrel, but that's what that's shooting a fish in a barrel is what I think people have become accustomed to thinking about endurance sports and marathons or half marathons and, ultras and long. It's like everybody can do it. No, they can't. They can't. That's just a fact. Everyone is capable, but most people won't.
Right.
Because you have to not just have, I fully believe that everyone has the athletic ability to be whatever they want to be and do whatever they want to do. And if you're, well, I'm not that athletic, then you're right. You never will be. So you've, made your own bed. Now you can lie in it. But you should refuse to tell yourself that. I'm not athletic, or my fastest days are behind me. Of course they are. You've already told yourself that. So now you're just going to make it true. Refuse to believe that. Live in optimism. Live in a place that's challenging, yourself. But I'm not saying that it's easy, because it's not. But you can't make a habit of quitting and being soft. You got to make it a habit to find a way, realize what you signed up for, and understand that you made the choice, and now you got to stick with it.
Yeah. Are you finished there?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, first, before I forget, you had mentioned the swimming thing, and that came up in the group. And for me, one of the things I like to do is sort of trick myself. And for me, I love getting in the sauna, and sauna is always my reward after the pool. So I kind of like use that as a carrot to get me into the pool, and then I really look forward to getting out and getting in the sauna, and then taking a cold shower. But I know that's not for everybody. But I like the sauna after the pool because it also helps sweat out the chlorine. But anyway, yeah, I call this this idea, like you can use a million analogies about people that say they want to do stuff, and I call it kind of the YouTube effect, where you go on, you see a video, and you're like, damn it, I want to do that. And then, and it can be anything. I was saying, you can go on there and find a video about how to build a log cabin, and then the next thing you know, you realize there's a lot of work involved, and it's not as smooth as what you just watched on the video. But I think back to what you said about races aren't going to change your life, but I'll be the first to admit that I thought that was the case, and I so I signed up, and it was really all I could think about, my first Ironman back when we were working together, and it was the whole year. And I've told the story. All I used to do was watch almost every night Wisconsin open water swim mass start, and I was just so jazzed by that. And then about, I was super excited for about a week after I signed up, and we kind of started our thing, and it was all fun and games and everything. And it got about 3 months in, and it's still 3 months away or whatever. And I was like, this ain't all that, man. It's kind of like, I got to make a lot of sacrifices. My lifestyle changed, and that was the point, but it was still difficult. And finally, somehow, I pulled it all together and got through it. And I'm not going to lie, man, the finish I had at Wisconsin, my first one, and probably like the week after, that might have been the best week I had had in 30 years. Because it was just sort of like going through this process, getting it done, having a successful race, being around people and friends. We've talked about it before. The minute you cross that finish line, you hit the red carpet, you're not thinking about shit. It's like the ultimate in the moment experience. You're not worried about anything going on in your life. You're just so relieved, so grateful, so content. I mean, nothing. You could have, the worst shit going on, and it's just like, I made it here, and what I had to get through to get here. That's when I started realizing. It took me a long ass time, because then I started getting to kind of bummed out. I'm like, shit, that was a pretty good high there that I can't find again unless I do it again, maybe. And then even then it doesn't happen. Like you said, the sophomore slump, I kind of went through that. And then I realized that it's all a journey. You can't, we seek that stuff on a daily. I feel like that stuff that is going to make us happy in the moment, or, we think it's like, oh, I'm going to start doing this. And then for the moment you get going, you're like, it kind of gets you jazzed up for a while. And then you realize it's a long journey, whatever it is, to get good at something, to try a new hobby, or to get in shape. And like you said, even get off the couch, that first couple of days is like, I'm fired up. And then about day 8, you're like, this ain't as, glorified as I thought it was. It's kind of a pain in the ass, to be honest. So I just think we have to really find understanding of what the journey is, and realize too that, I've talked about this before, but that high-low thing. I used to have a buddy with my old t-shirt company. He was always just level, and I would be all excited about certain things, and he just wouldn't get excited, and then I'd be bummed out, and he wouldn't get bummed out. He was just always really good at sort of being content. And I think contentment is one of the hardest things to find, just being sort of okay with whatever's going on. You can't, I think we even do it on, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of celebration, but, a lot of times when we would go out on those 5-hour, 6-hour rides on the Natchez Trace, I would just be dreading that shit. And then, we get into it, and about halfway through, I was like, all right, well, we're almost over, Bob. And then you get done, and you're like, yeah, now we're done. We can go back to the above-ground pool and float around a little bit. But, you do that, and it's just like, I don't know. I think the more you do it, the more you realize that every part of it can be enjoyable. It isn't always going to give you a rush. It's not always going to beat you down. It's just kind of like, well, you say it all the time, the best athletes you have, and same goes for me, are the ones that just kind of just do it. It's just part of their day. It's not like an award ceremony every time they go out and run 35 minutes or whatever. They just do it, knock it out, and then they go on to the next thing. And it's kind of like that. You sort of it's easy to put more weight on your training than your daily activities in life. And I think that's when it can kind of get out of skew. Especially if what you're putting the weight on isn't going how you like it. Then it's like, damn, what do I have now? Because I was really into this triathlon thing, and now it's getting really hard. And it's not quite as rewarding or satisfying. And then it's like, shit, now I got to turn back to life? Screw that.
Mm-hmm. Screw that. Yes, because it sounds miserable. And you said something that I think about a lot with athletes that I work with. The athletes that I work with and that I worked with in the past, the ones that have the most expectations are always the ones that are the most miserable.
Mm.
They're the least happy. And they'll tell you they're perfectionists. And I tell you, I just have high goals. Okay, then stop having expectations and just do the work and you'll reach them. The ones that have the most expectation and expect a workout to change their day or a workout to change their life or a workout to go perfectly, right? I got a PR of this one. Are 99 times out of 100 the underachievers because they get in their own way.
Mm.
Because every day becomes a chore. Every day becomes a pressure-filled moment where it has to be this or the world is going to crumble. The most successful athletes that I work with and have always worked with don't. They don't have an expectation. They let it roll off their back if they have a bad day. Yep, just wasn't my day.
Yeah, that's hard.
Or that was pretty good. That's it.
Yeah.
Or and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, you're trying to stay. You really try to stay even keel for the ones that are even keel. Because sometimes I want to be like jumping through the training peaks. I'm like, dude, you annihilated this. But you have to, as a coach, you have to appreciate, and you're so happy they're in that kind of, like that gray zone that you don't want to do anything to like to tip the scale, know? And they're the ones that achieve the most because they go into races and yeah, we all have expectations, but it's the amount of weight you put behind it. Everybody has thoughts. Everybody has feelings about races and what they want to get out of it. But the ones that train that way and don't have expectation of everything, or just let it roll off their back, or they never, ever go back and look at the same run or the same ride from a year ago. Never. Ever.
Mm.
All they're doing is looking towards tomorrow. Done with today. What's next? It's never about what they did 4.5 weeks ago on somewhat of the same route in a different life or 3 years ago. It's never that. It's always forward. Where do I need to be tomorrow? What do I need to do today to be ready for tomorrow? The ones that keep looking in the past stay stuck in the past. And you rob the joy out of everything you do in the moment because you're comparing it. You're expecting out of it. That's just a fact. It might not be the truth for you specifically that's listening, but the hundreds and hundreds of athletes we've worked with in the past 10 years, that is the trait that the most successful ones, and not just the most successful ones, the happiest ones have that. The ones that are the least happy, that are the most negative, most critical. It's not because they don't get faster. It's because they expect so much. And then they nitpick with a fine-tooth comb everything that they do. Mm-hmm. It's because you expect it to be better tomorrow. And then that's like when you were talking through, quitting and giving up, there's that image that, people pass around us, it's like little caveman, creepy looking dude with like a, pickaxe in his hand. It's like every time, most people turn around right when things get hard, but it's right before the breakthrough, and he's digging this hole, he's doing a lot of work, and then he turns back around and go the other way. And then what you see on the other side is like, a bunch of diamonds. He's like digging down in a cave or some shit. And it's like, he gave up right before right before he reached his destination. Mm-hmm. But it's so, and what happens is when you want something immediately, you make poor decisions. You have, and it's hard. Like I always go back and I think through. I mean, frankly, a lot of the hardest periods in my life, some of them, but this one specifically, were ones I did to myself, and I had to make it through. But I'll never forget my very, very, very first night in treatment. I had a huge intervention with my family, and got there, had nothing. My car had been, repossessed, about to get evicted from my apartment. And I show up there, and And I go with the intake and I'm sleeping in these beds. I'm like, I mean, I have no idea what I'm in for.
Mm-hmm.
I committed. I was like, I already told myself, all right, fine. I'm just going to do this of whatever. I'll do it for 30 days and I'm done. I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I'll do it for 30 days. And that first night I was in there, you had to share a room with somebody else. And this guy came in there. I still remember his name, but I won't mention it. And he had been arrested. He came in. He was there because the cops found him passed out in his car while it was running on a set of railroad tracks.
Wow.
And he was in there, and so they had this RA, who I also remember his name. He's one of my favorite people on this planet, was sitting in the closet with the light on because they had to have someone in the room to be on quote unquote, suicide watch for this guy. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, oh my God, is this what my life is going to be like? I don't even know if I can handle 30 days like with some dude in the closet, some strange man in the closet with a light on like this. I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up for a period, but here I am. And we had to stay in there for 2 days because they were waiting for people to leave the house that I was supposed to move into and all these things. And we get the next day and I get moved to this house, and it's like full of 16 guys of all different age ranges, from 18 to 66. Most people, and they put people in similar houses. So it's people like me. There's struggling with all kinds of alcohol abuse and trauma and all these kind of things. And I figured, hey, I'm going to see this guy too. And then in a day or two, whenever it happened. And I asked the RA that was in there a couple of days later, I said, hey, where's so-and-so? And he goes, he left. He left. He just left because he was over 21. You don't have to stay. And he said, he looked at me and just said, he just passed. I didn't have a problem. And there's a few different instances and circumstances I'll never forget I ended up staying for 90 days because I remember after 30, they say, oh, well, the longer you stay, the better chances you have. And at that point, the trick is, not the trick, but the hard part is you've been sober for a certain amount of time, but they want you to keep working to give you a better shot for it to stick. And I always think about this, maybe not daily, but weekly, about all the people that were there for a week or two and you listen to them talk and they didn't want to do the work and they didn't think they had a problem, or they thought they were there for a week so it was done, where their life is now. And half of them, I know where their life is now. Some of them aren't here anymore. And I always think, and I'm always grateful for whatever I had in my head back then, that was, yeah, you've already stopped drinking, but you got more work to do. And if you want to do better in the long haul, you got to do as much work as you can right now. And there is no guarantee. There was no prize at the other end. In fact, I was going to leave with the anti-prize. I had more things to go through and to deal with, but I was committed for whatever reason. I was committed to sticking it out and working my ass off to where I could put myself in the best position to do whatever it needed to be done. But there was no prize. There is no prize. And then that's the similar to, in alcoholics and or anybody in recovery or that's been absent from anything. It's like you don't get a reward daily. I mean, well, you do because your life is significantly better, but it's not like there's like, once you make it to 10 years, you never have to do that work again. You can go back to what you're doing. It's always there. And I tell that story to say this is, while that might seem very polar opposite and extreme to training and to life for most people that don't struggle with addiction and they don't struggle with, substance or anything else in their life, the point I'm trying to make is that giving up is easy. It's super easy. I mean, I still follow some of the people that left early and I see their lives, and there's not 1 ounce of me that's jealous. There's none of it. Mm. Working hard for as long as possible will always pay its dividends. It may not look spectacular. It may not be what you want it to feel like today, but you always grow and you always learn something from it and you always take something from it. Because what happens is the harder you work, the more things you gather, and your toolbox becomes greater at dealing with things in life, and you're less likely to quit and you're less likely to give up. It changes your character. A piece of you and a part of you changes. That's the stuff that sticks with you, not the not the quitting. The easy stuff doesn't do it for you, right? It's the hard things that you pick. That was one of the first things my primary therapist told me when I was leaving. He took me to, it was a really interesting spot I was in life, and obviously, and I'm preparing to leave treatment and go to a halfway house, and he told me to go tour these 3 different places, and he said, I fucking hated him back then. Hated him. He was like, he was so hard on me, and now he's one of my favorite people on this planet. I love him to death. That he said to go take a tour of these houses, and the first 2 halfway houses we went and looked at, they weren't even halfway houses, dude. They were like, they were, one was on Music Row, right in Nashville, and it was like you had a flat screen TV in your room. I mean, it was like, I was like, dude, you are living it here. The next place, very, very similar. Just what you would think, like high end. Didn't feel like you were working anymore. It didn't feel like. It felt like your work was done. It felt like it was time to cruise. And I said, all right, go to this third one and let me know what you think. And I roll over, and you know where it was.
Kind of.
It was over in East Nashville. It's now been torn down. It's now like, 17 tall skinnies on 1 acre lot. And it's just like maybe a quarter mile behind Pomodoro. And I roll up there, and it's just like it's like a 3-story disheveled house, and I walk in. There's a key code on the back door, a list of like responsibilities. You had to have a job within 48 hours of checking in. You had a curfew, and I walked in, and you had all these responsibilities, and half the guys in there were on DOC release. They were released early from jail or prison because they, but the point was they had to go straight to this to be on probation or whatever. And there was 16 other guys in there, and I was going to share a room with this older gentleman on like the not even a twin bed. It was like the smallest bed you can imagine. No TV, no nothing. Not TV in the house. Mm-hmm. And it was $125 a week. You paid however you wanted to, but it was week to week. And I remember thinking to myself as I walked down the stairs, like, this place looks like hell. This place looks like hell. And I come out and I called my primary therapist, and he said, so what'd you think? And I said, well, it looks pretty rough. And he said, it's what you need. He said, I went there, and it did for me what you think it can do for you. And I said, all right. And he said, you need to keep working, and this is working. And so I signed up, and I didn't want to, and I didn't like it, but it was the point. Again, the point being is that when you choose to work, and you choose to work towards a goal, and you know that work is required, then you don't have an expectation of that anything is going to happen beautifully tomorrow. You just get ingrained and agree to participate in what you know is going to be hard work. And now, does it feel just as hard now as it did, 9 years ago? No. So some days it does. But now the work has become different, and it doesn't feel easier. It's just different kinds of work you have to do at this range, at this length in sobriety. It's not like your work is done. But I guess, again, the message is that, when you choose to work and you choose to work hard, I don't think you'll ever regret it. Something positive will always happen from it.
Obviously, there's a lot in there that resonates with me, and it's just, I always like hearing those stories. You said there is no prize. And that's the one thing that really kind of sticks out to me, because it's always the challenge, right? And, if we switch kind of gears back into the concept of training and how it's ongoing, like you said, hard work is the stuff that pays off, but you can't expect it to pay off like tomorrow every time. To me, that's one of the biggest struggles that we face, is that we're going through this long thing and expecting sort of the payout. It's like we want payday every day. And what you went through was, it was kind of like a blind journey, and I think that in a lot of ways triathlon can be like that, because you just don't know. I mean, we have our images of, Instagram finish lines and all these kind of things. But you think back to, we always talk about this, man. We talk about all the races that we've been to and team races and things like that. And you never does the memory, like your racing memory is never really in there. It's always the sitting around in the hotels and going out to dinner and hanging out with people and stuff like that. And I don't want to say we don't give that the credibility. Maybe we don't, it's like, that is it. I mean, this is it. This is what we're doing right now. This is it. And, it's almost like you get to these races and you have 3 days, and those are always the best days, but we always kind of want to put the race above it, which obviously we've been training for a long time, but the fun is always there, the happy can always be there. It doesn't always have to be about the prize. And, the metaphor, I guess, is the medal. It's not always about the medal. It's never about the medal, really. I mean, I know we all collect them, and a lot of us do and stuff, but, it's funny because that first one, it always feels like, man, that thing was like, I had that thing in a fireproof safe, I was like, yeah. It was like a big deal. I was carrying it around and shit for a long time. And now I have no idea where any of my medals are. Of course, I've been moving, but I just like that story you just told. And I think about it, because we talked about how the sophomore slump and everything, and how it's harder to keep it going kind of thing. I'm just curious. It just popped in my head, but do you think you could go through that again right now? It's sort of like, sit there for 90 days. Such a good
question. God, that's a tough one. Yeah, I'll be honest. I think I'm softer than I was back then.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. And you and I have talked about this a ton. You and I were really close back then, and I communicated with you a lot while I was in there. I tell people close to me, and anytime I've ever gone and spoke about my experience and stuff with other people in treatment or in life. And, I think in life, we chase easy, we want things to be easier, in life, because it makes us feel like we've accomplished something. Right. But I went through so much hell back then, before, during, even after I got sober, frankly, through some stuff I don't think people could have made it through.
I agree.
And I kind of get choked up talking about it, but I am forever grateful that I had to go through that. Because I honestly don't think, and I think this is maybe a perfect, way to put it for this podcast, is that if things hadn't have been so hard for me, I don't know that I would have done it. But I was faced with such a difficult challenge that I knew I had to work that much harder. And I to be honest, and I question if I would have worked as hard had I not been so terrified. And had and knew I had so many hard things to overcome. I may have taken it easy. I may have, like a lot of the, people there, it's, you got 30 days, I'm getting a free pass, I eat food and, you got to give up your phone. You don't have TV. It's just, it's no phone, no TV, no nothing for 3 months, gave up my number. I left with, I think, 5 numbers in my cell phone, got a new number, erased everything, reset, I was living out of a backpack basically. But I'll tell you one thing too, is that was some of the happiest I've ever been. Because I got to a point, I remember where I was standing as I was at work one day, and I remember thinking to myself, if my whole life got ripped away and I became homeless, as long as I keep doing what I'm doing, even if I'm pushing a grocery cart down the road, I'll be happy and I can make it. And I truly convinced myself of that.
That's awesome.
And I think, what'd you say?
I said, that's awesome, man. I've heard like people will say that occasionally it's not bad to, like, whatever, just like eat rice and beans for a few days or something, just to prove that, or, like sort of take the fear away of being in that spot. And that's what I kind of took from what you're saying. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, because it gives you like this. It's like, it's weird because when you feel like you can make it with nothing, you feel like you can do anything with everything, and that's kind of where I got into at that point. It was, I didn't feel untouchable for sure, but I did feel unbreakable, because I think that was, for me, being unbreakable was a choice. I can choose to be broken. I can choose to break myself again. I can choose to let all these other circumstances or things break me. I can choose to let it break me, or I can choose to not let it. And I can choose to just put my fucking nose to the ground and see it through. And there was never, and it's funny because, like, when you go back and you look and you ask people, like, when did you get sober? And it's not like, yeah, my sobriety day is November 20th, but that's just the first day. That's just the first day I didn't drink. I don't know what day I technically got sober, because to me, sobriety is more about mental and emotional, peace of mind and where you are, not just drinking. It's kind of like, so when did you make it? I don't know. It just kind of happened. It's like, when did you get fit? I don't really know. It just kind of happened along the way, right? It's just, you don't know. There's no day. There's no special moment. It just becomes part of what you did. And no, I don't. I don't know if I'm sure I could, but I don't want to find out. To be honest with you, it's like, I know a lot of people, relapse as part of their story. I don't want it to ever be a part of mine, because I don't know if I can do it again. Honestly, because I look back and think about how much, that's the strongest I've ever been, ever. Those 2 or 3 years, that was the strongest I've ever been in my entire life. And but it was all because I had to work and almost be like naively fearless about, I mean, it's like it was weird. It was like it was a weird spot to be in. But again, I wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation with you. Right? I fully believe this. I wouldn't be having this conversation with you right now with a life that I have now, had I not had it so hard in the beginning. And I wouldn't change any of it. I wouldn't change any of it, because I'm grateful that I was forced through all those things to become and work my way into creating a different life and a different, version of myself.
Yeah, there's a lot there. And obviously, when you said that, you say that was when you're toughest or something. It wasn't. I mean, there wasn't long after that when you probably had one of your best Ironman races, and I would imagine, if I remember right, really didn't train a whole like you normally would, for sure, up at Wisconsin.
Yeah, I had I think Hayden was 8 weeks old. He was in the NICU, had a really, really rough. Yeah, I definitely didn't. But it's the best Ironman performance I've ever had. Yeah, for sure.
But then, that just brings up a really interesting point to me, and stuff I always think about is like, when you're mentally tough and you believe and you're strong and you just kind of know how to get through things, that stuff goes a long way. And obviously that's always at the kind of nexus of how I like to think about coaching too, you know, because I've done it both ways too, where, you know, hard work pays off and everything like that, but there's the mental work and the psychological work that we have to do too. And that, you know, a lot of times that's the hardest shit too, you know, to get your head in the space where you can overcome things. And I mean, really racing is about overcoming things. And I think you mentioned it earlier about how you don't want to do it, but get your ass out there and do it, because that is the training. You know, I've talked about it before when we used to play. And I still think this is one of the reasons why I've had fairly decent success in this sport, is because I never did endurance sports growing up, and I played baseball and stuff like that. But when I started playing this real competitive softball thing, and I've talked about it and I won't bore you, but like, we would go out on the road, and if you lose your first game in a double elimination tournament, you end up playing, you know, like if you keep winning, you play like 7 games in a row sometimes, or, you know, when you're in the loser's bracket, you just got to keep bringing it back. And just to keep getting off that bench and going back out there to the field, that was one of the hardest things that I ever went through. Some of those days, you know, we'd be hung over, and it'd be like 100 degrees, and the field would be just dusty, and it sucked. But we had to just keep getting back up and keep in that. To me, it's not always about the workout. It's getting to the workout is the training.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not easy sometimes. Well, most times, really. But how do you get through that moment in the race, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the challenge. But I mean, just like it says, that's the challenge, you know? And I think whether you're looking for it, you signed up for it, or you're in it regardless, you know, it's a challenge. And I think we all have within us the ability to rise to that challenge. And a lot of that comes with, you know, positive self-talk and almost a naive, you know, confidence that we can make it through and get it done. But the cool thing about that is that the more you tell yourself that, the more it becomes true, because you make it through situations, you make it through times you didn't think. And you know, we can close it out, but it's like, that was one of the things that they told us in treatment, like, you know, we're not promising you anything. You're not guaranteed. It's not like, you know, you get a money back life guarantee on your sobriety if you stay 30 days, or you stay 60, or you stay 90. You know, right. It's like there's nothing guaranteed. None of it. There's nothing. All they did was say, if you work hard, you've got a better shot. If you work hard, you know, I saw the statistics, 30, 60, 90 the days, you know, the percentages just went so much higher from staying in for 30 days versus staying in for 90. And I remember, I'll tell this quick story and then we can close it out and I'll shut up. But about 2 days before I had to decide if I was going to stay for 90 days or leave at 60, went through this really, really, really hard session of where you basically, all the guys on campus, you got in this room and you wrote on the sheet of paper and you went through all these like numbers, all the money you spent, you know, in your life on alcohol and all these things, all these terrible things you've done. You're just really, really open and vulnerable with the whole thing. And I remember looking at my sheet of paper and I was like, oh my gosh, like my life has become, or had become. And I got on the phone and talked to my family. It's like, you know, can we afford another 30, you know? And they're like, yeah, you know, if you keep working like it is. And I remember I called my primary therapist because they were going to give up my bed. And he said, so you're going to stay? And I said, yes, I don't ever want to come back. I don't ever want to come back here. Not because I hated where I was or what I was doing or I was miserable. It was, I don't want to ever get back to a place to where I had put myself in a position to have to come back. That's exactly what I said. I said, I don't ever want to come back. And thankfully, you know, through all kinds of wonderful opportunities and hard work, I haven't been back, you know, 10 years in November. But the point was, is I chose to work another 30 days when I could have just left. but it was because I wanted to see it through, and I wanted to give myself the best shot. Again, no guarantees, no nothing. We're never guaranteed anything. You're not guaranteed a medal. You're not guaranteed a finish. You're not guaranteed a PR. You're not guaranteed everybody's going to love you because you did an Ironman. But the more you work, the harder you work, the more you challenge yourself, the more you're forced to grow, the better you become. And the better you become, the happier you become. And the happier you become and better, and the harder worker you are, now we're talking about changing who you are. And that makes everything more gratifying because you can, but it's never the medal. It's never the guarantee. It's never the finish. It's the work you do that changes who you are and forces you to make these small decisions that just add up, you know? One day at a time can add up to 40 years. Mm. You just don't walk out and think of the 40, you think of the next day. So if you're struggling with training, you're struggling with life, or you're struggling with motivation, you don't know where it's coming from, or why do we work so hard, or I don't want to work hard, just work hard for today. Wake up tomorrow, work hard again. Work hard again. It won't be a magical day where you think, I've made it. You'll just look back one day and it'll all be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Today's not the race, man. Usually.
Usually. All right, man. Go fill out your bracket.
Oh, that's right. All right, I'll do that. All right, buddy. I appreciate you opening up and it's a nice conversation.
Man, always.
All right, and we will catch you next week.
Yeah. And what, Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday? I don't know, whatever. We'll be there. Oh yeah. We'll be there twice next week. Regardless, as always, we love you. We appreciate you. Have a wonderful weekend. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. And if you need anything from Mike, he's available, CrushingIron@gmail.com. Or if you need anything from me specifically, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, man. Go Vols. I'm on your train.
That's right. Go Vols, baby. All right, dude. I'll see you later.
See you.